Hi everyone, in this video we are going to solve a problem. The problem name is minimum time to complete a trips and the problem number is 2187. Alright, so guys, first of all we are going to clearly understand this particular problem. After that we are going to move to the logic part. We are going to see how we can solve this particular problem. After that we are going to implement our logic in C++, Java and Python programming language. Fine, now let's see this particular problem, what this problem says. So guys, this problem says you are given an array time where time of I denotes the time taken by ith bus to complete one trip. So guys, let's understand this particular line from example 1. So here in example 1, we have time array, right? So we are given the time array. The value inside this is nothing but 1, 2, 3, right? So this particular value is nothing but it denotes that the time taken by particular bus to complete a single trip, right? So here one value means the zeroth bus is going to take 1 unit of time. Zeroth bus will take 1 unit of time to complete a single trip, one trip, right? Similarly, first index bus will going to take 2 unit of time and second index bus will going to take 3 unit of time. I hope this makes sense, right? Fine. After that, each bus can make multiple trips successfully. That is, next trip can start immediately after completing the current trip. Also, each bus operate independently. That is, the trips of the one bus do not influence the trip of any other bus. So, guys, it says that let's say this is again 1, 2, 3 array. So once the one bus has completed its trips, so one bus has completed its trips in 1 unit of time, right? So on the second unit of time, it can start again doing another trip, right? So single bus can take multiple trips. I hope this makes sense. So it's not like only one bus is going to take on only one trip. It can take two trips, three trips, four trips, right? Okay. And the second bus, which is going to take again a trip, is not going to influence between this particular one, right? So let's say two buses are going to make a trip. So this is a bus. It is, let's say this is two trips. So one bus is going there and second one also moving. So they are not going to influence even though the time is same. It is also going to start 1 unit of time, it is also going to start 1 unit of time, but it is not going to interact between them, right? So there is no going to be interaction between them, so they can easily make their particular trips. I hope this makes sense. So they can have multiple trips as well as without any interaction with another bus, right? You are also given an integer total trips which denotes the total number of trips all the bus should make in total. Okay, return the minimum time required for all the bus to complete at least total trips. Now guys, there is the main question comes. So it is the main problem. Now it says that we are given with one variable, that is total trips. Here in example when we have 5, right? So let's understand this only. So here if this is total trips is 5, that means it says that we have to complete 5 trips. That is simple, right? We have to complete 5 trips. Our target is to complete 5 trips. And we can use all the bus if we want, right? Now we have to find out how many minimum time, how much the minimum time will be taken if we completed the total 5 trips. So if we consider the first example, so let's say time is given, I think what 1, 2, 3, right? So now guys, here time is 1, 2, 3, and we have to complete 5 trips, right? Total 5 trips. So now guys, you can think out this that we can use all these first, right? So if we say that at time 1, this bus can only complete this bus can complete a one trip, right? So the first bus will can complete a one trip. So first index bus has completed one trip. Is that make sense, right? Second index bus can't complete a one trip because time we have taken only one right now. So it need at least 2 time to complete one trip, right? And the third, we can say this particular bus is also not gonna complete any single trip at unit of time 1, right? So at unit of time 2, how many buses has completed how many trips? So the first index bus can again start and it can complete 2 trip now, right? And the second bus we can say now it can complete one trip because it needed 2 unit of time and we are at the 2 unit of time, right? And third unit of bus will not going to complete any of the things. Why? Because it need at least 3 unit of time, right? So to complete a single trip, so it hasn't completed a single trip, right? At unit of time 3, what we can see, this particular bus again going to start a new trip and it going to complete a new trip. So total it completed 3 trip. I hope it makes sense. Second bus has completed 1 unit of already one trip and it going to start the second trip, we can say, right? So it has completed till now trip only, but it is continuing with a second trip, right? Third one has completed now 1 unit. I hope it makes sense. One trip it has completed because it need at least 3 amount of time. So you can see that at third unit of time, the first bus has completed 3 trip, second bus has completed one trip, and one is ongoing, and the third bus has also completed one trip. So total they have completed 5 trip, right? But they taken a 3 minimum time, right? So we can say that at time 3, these 3 buses are going to complete 5 total trips by we can say including all the trips, right? So I hope these are making a sense. Just we are using the every verse that once you have completed a trip, start making another trips, yes. And if you haven't completed any trip, so keep doing, right. It's not gonna, we can say, interact between another. So we can say here we need just written 3 amount of time. We are gonna take just 3 minimum time to complete 5 total trips by using bus 1, bus 2, and bus 3. I hope these are making sense. So if you have clear with this particular example, or we can say problem. So now let's move to the example second and see whether we have any example second or not. So we are not having example second. So let's try to understand the logic part, how we are going to solve this particular problem, right? So let's move to the logic part and see how we can find a minimum time so that the we have completed total trips as well, and by using all the buses which are given here, right? So logic we are going to see. So guys, it's going to be really hard if we use a greedy right here. If you think that we can use a greedy, then definitely it's going to be very wrong approach. Why? Because greedy is going to not making sure you that whether you are going to complete. Let's say this is example 1 2 3, right? You will, what we will do, you will sort it first. So let's say you have sorted it, and by default it is also sorted, but you will not come to know that do I need to take one this first one 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? How will you come to know that whether I need to take this one, how many number of trips it should complete it? Here it completed 3 times, right? But how would you come to know? It's going to be really hard. You will come backtrack this, or you will use in hash map. So it's going to take a more time complexity. But there's a best solution, that is nothing but binary search solutions. And how this going to work? Let's see that. So guys, binary search solution. Why binary search? Because it is a monotonic. How it is monotonic? See, if I say you that, let's take it here, a graph. Every time whenever you think of binary search, just make a graph and see whether it's monotonic or not, right? So guys, here if I just say time, right? So here is 1 unit of time, second unit of time, third unit of time, fourth unit of time, fifth, sixth, seventh, right? So this is time, and this is particular trips, how many trips he can make, right? So here let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So now guys, think about this. If I'm taking a time 5 units, right, and I'm completing a 6 trips, so if I take a less, or we can say less amount of time, or we can say greater amount of time than 5, then will I able to complete the trip less than 6? Focus over here. I'm again repeating that if I have taken a time 5, I'm taking 5 times 5 minute time, and I'm able to complete 6 total trips, right? At unit of 5, I am able to complete 6 total trips. If I increase the time, if I take one more unit of time 6, then is it possible to that it is possible that I will able to complete less than 6 trips? No, never, right? So if I'm increasing a time, there is a possibility that I can complete 7 trips or 8 trips, but it will never be possible that I can complete less than 6 trips, right? So if I am increasing a time, my trip total trip can be increased, but it will never decrease, right? So we can say this is nothing but a monotony. If I am completing 5, I'm taking a 6 total trips. If I'm decreasing a time, then I may have less than 6 or equal to 6, right? But I will not able to get a more than 6, right? So it is gonna be look like if I say this is the way, right? So this is nothing but monotony graph. I hope it is making a sense. So we need to just find that particular point where we can see that total trips are coming a less than given total trips, right? So if here, if you will see that at 3, we are getting nothing but 5, right? So we need to find just 3 at this particular point where my total tips is less greater than or equal to the total given total tips we need to find, right? So here we need to just find a particular point where we can say our total tip is greater than or equal to 5. It should not be less than, right? So if I take 2, then I am definitely going to get a less than this, right? So I'm going to get a 4, or we can say 3, right? But if I take 3, then I'm going to get a 5. If I take 4, then let's say I'm getting a 10, right? So just I need to find a last point where my total trips is matching with our given total trips, or if it is equal to, right? So how we can do this? Let's gonna see the implementation part, and we're just gonna use a binary search, and after that we're gonna just find out whether it is possible or not. It is the last one. If we can say it's the lower one possible value. So if it is yes, then we are gonna return it. If it is not, then we are gonna move to the left side. If it is getting a lower one, then again we are gonna returning it. So now it is making a complex things, but if believe me, if you do the implementation part, if you see the implementation part, definitely you are gonna see it is the easy one, right? So let's move to the implementation part and see how we can implement this particular problem, right? So let's move to the implementation part. And here guys, first of all, I'm with the Python. So let's see in the Python how we can do this particular problem, right? So as I'm going to use a binary search, so I'm going to say low, and low is 0. High is I'm going to give a max value. What it could be the max value? So the max value here, I can take the maximum of time into the total tips, right? But here I'm going to take, let's say 2 4 6 8 10 11 12 13 14 15. 15 is enough. 10 raised to 15, isn't it? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a binary search while low less than equal to high, and I'm going to find a mid that is going to be low plus high divided by 2, right? So once I find these particular things, now what I can say check it whether if done is a function which I'm going to use. If done of mid means if I use this particular unit of time, how many total tips I'm able to get it, right? So it's going to tell us. And if that total tip is greater than or equal to total tips, then definitely it is our right answer, right? So we're going to say that is a good, we are on the right path. means it is going to give us an answer. And let me define a function as well so that you have a clear idea. Define done. This is going to be a function, and here I am mid. I'm just going to say to trips. So trips is nothing but 0. So I'm going to say for t in time, I'm going to traverse over time. So I'm going to say to trips plus equal to, so we can say this time which we have mid divided by time, right? So it's going to tell us that how many trip are possible within this particular time. So now we are going to say if trip is greater than or equal to total trips, that means this is a possible answer, but it is not the right answer, but it is a possible answer, right? So you have to return true, right? So I'm here checking if it is true, that means it is a possible answer. But if it is a right answer or not, so we have to check is it the last one answer? Means below this, if we are getting a false, if we can say note done, let me write a note done mid minus one. If it is a false, then means we can say this is the only right answer, right? So we are going to return mid. I have this making a sense. And we can also check if mid is in mid minus one is 0 or not. If it mid minus one 0 or not mid done mid minus one is true, then we can say return mid. This is the first one where we are getting our total trips, right? If it is not the case, then what we can say? We can say move to the left side, right? So high should be equal to mid minus one, and here we can say else low should be equal to mid plus one. Now we can say return, or we have already written in here mid, so we don't need to return anything here. Just we can run this particular code and see whether we are getting a right output or not. So let's see. So here we got an error that is nothing but total trips, right? So total trips should be there, S should be there. Now let's run this code. And you can see that both the test cases are passed, isn't it? So let's try to submit this particular code and see whether we are getting a right output or not. And you can see that guys, it successfully got submitted, right? So we have successfully solved this particular problem with a Python programming language. Now let's move to the another programming language that is nothing but, let's say, C++, right? So first of all, we're going to take a low. Low is 0. So let me take a low is 0, right? And then we are going to take a high. So long high also 0. We are going to use a max value here. So we are going to traverse over time for value in time. I'm going to say high should be equal to maximum of, I can say, int of high comma time of high, right? So I'm taking a first of all maximum value, then I'm going to define high multiply equal to total trips. So it's going to take a possible maximum value. We don't need to define 10 raised to 15 here like Python, because it's going to give an error. I have tried personally, I have tried. Once we go to high, we're going to use a while search here, while low less than equal to high. What I'm going to say find out the mid. So long mid, it's going to say, and which is going to be high, low plus high divided by 2, right? Fine. Once we found a mid, we are going to use in a function. We're going to check it if done of mid is true, right? So mid, after that we have to pass a time, then we have to pass a total trips, right? So if it is true, that means we have a possible answer, but it is not the right answer. We have to check it, right? So if mid minus 1 is 0, or we can say not done of mid minus 1 time and total trips. If it is 0, that means it is the right answer which we are standing, right? So we are going to say return our mid. All right, but if it is not the case, then we have to move to the left side, right? So there are more possibly right answer on the left side. So we can say high is equal to mid minus 1, and else part we can say simple low should be equal to mid plus 1. Fine. So we have to define a function now. So I'm going to say bool, the function name done, and I'm going to pass here long mid, right? So long mid, then int, not int, we can say vector of time. So let's say vector of time, then we're going to pass in total trips, right? So total trips. So we're going to say long trip is nothing but, let me write it, trip is nothing but 0 initially. So we're going to traverse over time, so value in time. We're going to say trip plus equal to value, or we can say mid divided by value, right? So once we are going to done this, we are going to get our trip. So we're going to check if our trip is greater than or equal to total trips, that means these are the possible answers. So return true, right? So it is going to return true, and it is going to return mid as well, right? So let's try to run this code and see whether we are getting any error or no. So we got an error trips, right? So here should be S, right? Okay, and let's try to run this code then. So any more error we are getting? All right, so let's run this code. And here one more error, time of I, right? So time of I, I'm not using it, so I'm using a just value. So I can just write value, right? Fine. Now let's run this code. Last one, that we can't use, we have to return something, right? Even though we don't know, we have to return something, right? Even we know that we can easily get our answer at this particular stage, right? So still, let's run this. Let's see whether we are getting any error or not. So you can see that all the test cases are passed. So let's try to submit this code. And here we go, guys, right? So we have successfully submitted with C++ as well. Now let's move to the Python last programming language, that is nothing but Java, right? So for Java, again, I'm going to define low, which is nothing but 0, and long high, which is going to be nothing but initially 0. We are going to use something inside of this. So we're going to traverse over time. Fine. We're going to say high should be equal to maximum high, and we can say value. Once we go to our high, we are going to multiply it with total trips. Fine. So we got a high. Now we are going to use a binary search. We have low and high, so we can use a binary search. While low less than equal to high, just traverse it. Okay. And here we're going to say find a mid. So we can say low mid is going to be nothing but low plus high divided by 2. And we're going to check with the function if done of mid is true. So we're going to pass time as well, total trips as well. So let me add total trips. If it is true, that means it is the possible answer, right? So if it is the right answer, check it if mid minus 1 is 0, or we can say not done of mid minus 1, time, and total trips, right? Total trips. If it is true, if any of this is true, that means it is a right answer, right? So we can say return mid. Otherwise we can say high should be equal to mid minus 1, and in as condition we can say move to the right side. So we can say low should be equal to mid plus 1. Fine. So we know that we have to return something so that we don't get any error. So we are going to return 0, right? But we already know that definitely there will be some condition that we must have written something inside this while loop only, right? Fine. So now we are going to define one function that is done. So we're going to say boolean. So we can say public boolean and done. And here we're going to say long mid. We're going to say int of time, and we're going to say int total trips, right? Total trips. Fine. We're going to say in trips. So we can say long trips. So let me add trips, which is 0. We're going to say for in value of time, we're going to say trips should be plus equal to mid divided by value, right? So once this is done, we are going to say if trip is greater than trips is greater than, let me add trips. If it is greater than total trips, that means it is the right answer, possible answer, right? So return true. So if it is equal as well, so then also you have to return true, right? So let's run this code and see whether we are getting a right output or not. And you can see that we got an error. There is no math function, so we have to use math.max. Now let's run this code. And you can see that all the test cases are passed. So let's try to submit this particular code as well. And here we go, guys, right? You can see that this also get submitted, right? So we have solved it with C++, Python, and Java programming language. If you still have any kind of doubt, you can ask in the comment section. I'm always there to help you. If you learn something new in this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe my channel. Meet you in the next video. All right.